Oh, it looks like the recording has already started itself. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Derek Taylor David. I'm one of your leaders of the Phoenix Atlassian Community Events Group. Wanted
Cool.
to thank Becky and Michael here today from Visor. They're going to go be giving us a presentation on automation workflows that keep teams aligned. And without any further ado, and we'll let you guys get into your introduction, tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then kick it off as soon as you're ready.
Great. Becky, do you want to go first and then I'll take it and go right in?
Yeah, so I pitched for Mike to do this presentation. Mike is our Jira admin at Visor. He's also our CEO. Everyone here wears a lot of hats. And we're a small team of, I think, 11 people. And ergo, being very efficient is often the name of the game in automations and workflows. Dare I say that Visor has the most inventive use of them that I've seen, and I've worked at quite a few startups. So I thought Mike sharing his philosophy, some of his technical prowess. He's also an engineer, and how he's kind of implemented some of these processes and workflows and automations. I've learned a lot, and I really hope that everyone else does. And Derek was so gracious as to say, yes, let's do it. So I kind of thought, yeah, Mike sharing his thoughts would be useful to other people as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Becky. And yeah, like she said, I'm Mike, founder and CEO of Visor. But I kind of got my start as an engineer. I go back and forth of whether I'm more on the technical side or more on the business side. Turns out I kind of like a balance of both. But we had a number of issues in keeping our own team together and aligned, and providing visibility, especially across different teams. And I tried to find ways to use Jira automation just kind of as an experiment to work, and we've now built up systems on systems on systems, and it seemed like it would be helpful to share. So I'm excited to share a little bit more about what we do today, in hopes that it can inspire some of you who might not have already begun using Jira automation to start, and possibly those of you who already have to explore deeper, because what I'm actually really thrilled with is they're constantly adding new triggers and actions. And even in the time, I don't know, that we've been using them, maybe a year or so, the automations capabilities have grown really, really, really powerful. So I'll jump in. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions while we're going, feel free to chat in and I'll see if I can pause and answer them. And yeah, let me get started with the screen share. All right. So, as the sort of title was advertised, the whole idea here is to figure out how we can use these automations and workflows to keep that alignment within the team. I will say unequivocally that most team issues are more often people issues than tool issues. And I think that solving those people issues, that's the foundation from which tools can then be helpful and supportive. One of the, I think, the most difficult learnings as a technologist that I've had in my career is that it's not everything can be solved with tools and software. But I think once you get that aligned, this can help you from there. And it allows us to let the machines do what they're particularly good at, which is complement humans. I don't think they're coming for our jobs anytime soon, but we can rely on them to do the sort of boring, mundane, non-creative, but reliable things to keep us all going in the same direction. So we already did the introductions. I'll just say one word on what my company does, but that has nothing to do with, well, it is related, but it's not what we're going to be presenting on today. Visor is a software platform. If you've used Smartsheet, we're basically the more modern, beautiful, easier to use, and more budget-friendly version. We do a lot of portfolio management inspired by a spreadsheet, and a lot of companies really love using our product as a complement to Jira, which is one of our integrations. So that's us, that's Visor. But let's get into the teleplay that we all know too well. Um, I'm sure we have a wide group of people on the call today, but chances are, if you're here, you have experienced what I'm about to describe here. So let's start the teleplay. It's Friday afternoon. The deadline for a critical project that's due on Monday is looming. You are confident. Look at you heading out of the office. Everything is feeling great. And then Slack comes and blows it up with a message that's something like this: I don't think we can launch on Monday. We're still waiting on da 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 da. And yeah, you feel blindsided And worst of all, there's really no clear path to fix that problem quickly. If only this could have been flagged sooner than Friday, end of day. You end up feeling like this. This is the picture that basically grasped my expression when this used to happen. And it's just not very fun to get caught off guard. Another problem, wait, I didn't know this was going live today. Why didn't anyone? And when you have larger teams with multiple people involved, it can be frustrating when folks feel left out of the loop or underinformed. And so these were some of the problems that my own team was suffering from as we adopted Jira, and we wanted to find ways to really, I don't know, automate our way out of it. So here is what we were after. On side A, on the left, it was visibility, which meant real-time visibility into progress. So being able to see, oh, okay, this ticket we're making progress on that one. That's good to know without having to go in and look. That's really important. Awareness of bottlenecks, the ability to see before they become problems where the bottlenecks in the process will be so that you can get out in front of them and possibly go fix that up. I like to think of myself sometimes as CEO as the sort of unblocker in chief. If I find a bottleneck in the system, I'll see what I could do to go remove that. And number three is just an understanding of the broader schedule. As a sort of exec on the team, I go up and down the stack from literally reviewing code to messaging things outwards. But sometimes it's really important to know just roughly what the schedule is going to be so that those communications to customers, to investors, to partners, and other stakeholders can be informed. So that's what we're after on the visibility side. On the other side was accountability. And that meant ensuring that the responsibilities are clear. In other words, no balls are getting dropped. Confirming that the work is truly owned, that there's nothing that sort of is falling through those cracks, and validating the accuracy of our progress reports. Somebody once said, a customer of ours actually, that basically inaccurate data is worse than no data, and it's the enemy of project managers is to have inaccurate information, because then you'll be overly confident in something that will lead you astray. The third one here, the little surprise on the bottom, though, is adoption. And I think that's the most important probably of these two, which is that no matter what process you set up for your team, if you don't get good adoption and people aren't sort of consistent using it, you're going to end up with problems because you'll have gaps in the information and people will not feel informed. And if you don't have good adoption on one part of the team, it's like a bad apple. And starts to affect the others. So what we're after here is a solution that gives us A and B while also maintaining C. So what have we tried before? Well, I'll walk through some of the things that we tried to solve this that kind of helped but didn't quite get us there. It's the basics, the team meetings, the check-ins, the burn down charts, the Gantt charts, weekly status reports, project management software, Jira specifically. But each one of them has some problems. If you think about team meetings, they consume a lot of time, but often things that are spoken don't produce a lot of documentation. And as a result of that, we didn't have commitments that people were making documented in a place for that accountability, and it hurt visibility. When you do one-on-one check-ins or project check-ins, it relies on people to bring up blockers proactively, but sometimes things will fall through those cracks. I think that burn down charts and Gantt charts are beautiful and helpful to understand where you are, but they can provide a false sense of security. The burn downs only show you the progress, but they don't show you the blockers hiding in the bottom. And Gantt charts, one of the biggest things that's a challenge with them is they change very frequently as a result of things taking a little bit longer, and then things have to move. And so that necessarily doesn't give you a full picture of where things are going to be. We've done weekly status reports, but typically those are a little bit more retroactive than looking forward. And Jira is a wonderful tool and we rely on it heavily, but sometimes it can be difficult to extract a view of the right information, sort of that right granularity, but also being able to go down to the level that you want to see the details. This is where our team struggled, the Visor team in particular, with Jira. One was all of the nesting levels made it really hard to surface the right information. At one point, before we did a little bit of cleanup, I think we had 4 or 5 different nesting levels down the stack, and it was just mayhem. So you just wouldn't know. And sometimes engineers wouldn't open up the tickets deeper in and read the descriptions. That was a big pain. We in our internal team do sort of like a Kanban process with date estimates. I can describe a little bit more about that later. The date estimates are purely to give effectively other team members like product marketing an idea of when things might ship so that we can prepare for that. But we were routinely sort of missing those dates and there were no consequences. And so we just got really bad at that. Notifications were absolutely overwhelming. Every little change was getting reported up, even on the smallest of items that were not very important. And I really just wanted to get that high level information coming through. So this is a picture of your presenter here at 3 years old. I believe all problems can be solved on computers. Like I said at the beginning, reality, there's a lot of problems that need to be solved by people, but I always look to computers for solutions for things. So I decided to see if I could ask the bots for help so that they can make our jobs easier until they take them. So here are the 4 key goals that I had. First, like we said, improve transparency into those estimates, those dates, making sure everybody, including the assignee, is aware of upcoming due dates. If you work using sprints, this could be, hey, is this going to make it in the sprint that it is actually slated for? Notifying everyone of important changes. If something changes its due date or if something changes which sprint it's going to be in, um, being able to push those updates out is really important, and avoiding the double work of, hey, update Jira and then please send a message. The goal that I had here was to try to make it so that updating Jira automatically sent whatever messages would be expected. The third thing was to provide easy ways to flag problems. Going inside another piece of software sometimes and writing a comment can get lost. There's not a really easy way to flag stuff. And then lastly, enforcing these internal SLAs, avoiding letting things slide and establishing accidental new norms. And that's, as a team leader, that's one of the things that I'm always very cautious of, is things can very easily get off the rails. And if you don't catch that a little sooner and bring things back on, people will start to say, oh, well, I guess I don't need to do that either. And so enforcing that, and I'm, sort of tongue in cheek here, but naming and shaming, making sure that, it's made aware who is not accurately hitting their SLAs. And for us, the SLA was very simple. It was just, if you have a due date, just don't let it pass. You could push it forward if you need to, just explain why. But the breach of the SLA would be if that date ever passed without proactively saying, hey, this is not going to happen by that date. So just actually before this presentation, I wanted to go see if Rovo had in any way caught up to help with this. So I had a little bit of fun with Rovo. I set up and I could probably do another talk on this at some point, but I called it the PTC. That's our process name, the PTC Indiana Jones, with the idea being that it would sort of spelunk through the caverns of our backlog and look for things that got stuck that might be of high value. So I went through and I set up this agent inside Rovo. And I asked, what are the 5 projects stuck in the pipeline? And unfortunately, well, it gave me a very witty and fun answer because I told it to have a sense of biting, sarcastic humor. But all it basically did was sort of create a JQuery query that actually didn't find the items that I cared about. It wasn't actually doing any reasoning about them. I was hoping that Rovo would actually be able to read the tickets and sort of infer, oh, this seems very important. But instead, it looked for issues that had the word important in the title, which was not what I was after. So in my opinion, right now, at the very least, Rovo is still a little bit under construction, at least for this use case. There's some things that could be very helpful for. I know I was very excited at Team when it was announced, and I got into the sort of early access, but there's still some things that it doesn't quite do right. So we went back to good old fashioned automation. I'm curious from the group now, I'm seeing basically just my presentation screen, but within the group, if you wouldn't mind just using emojis in the window, if you give me a sense of how many folks here have already used automation, I would say thumbs up if you have already used it, or maybe a little finger if some other type of emoji if you're new to it. So a lot of folks have already got a bunch of folks coming in with automation. Okay, great. So we've got a lot of folks who have already used it. So in that case, I'm not going to focus too much on the basics of automation. I'm going to get into what we did. So let me keep on trucking. So the key ingredients for how we use the automation were having that clear set of internal expectations and norms. Basically, we actually have a little document, sort of like constitution that says what is our process for all of the different issues and issue types and statuses. And we, as a team, take care of that and update it and modify it. And then from there, setting up automation requires figuring out when should the automation run, sort of what day of the week or what time of day. That could be very powerful. You could do event-driven ones. So when somebody updates a ticket, do something. But I really latched on to, hey, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, take this action at 9 a.m. And at 7 p.m. before the due date's going to slip, let's send a message with an app mention, and we'll get into that in a minute, to the person who's responsible. The second thing you have to answer is what issues should you include in the job? That's a JQuil statement. What message you want to send, where you want to send it. So in our case, we were using Slack channels, but Microsoft Teams is connectable. You can do email. You could even send things through Twilio, I've seen. And then lastly, whom to notify. I'm going to take a quick moment to share a little bit more about our system that we came up with. So we don't use epics and stories. We love to invent things ourselves. So we invented a system that made sense for us. And so this is where that PTC, if you heard that, came from earlier. And I'm actually really curious at the end of this, when we get to sort of open forum, to hear feedback on this system. But we came up with a hierarchy that has just 3 levels. And our perspective was we actually preferred things to be rather flat rather than deep. And so the highest level of work at our company right now, at least in our software team, is a project. And that's a unit of work expected to launch all as one unit. Typically, it's 1 pull request per project. And they are never nested projects and projects. So if you have phases, it would be project phase 1, project phase 2. Within that, there are tasks that are broken down as units of work, written typically with command language, like add a new feedback form. And so the PM is responsible for all the user stories and thinking from the user perspective. And by the time it reaches Jira, we typically have translated it into sort of like almost like a Lego instruction manual of how to build it in some way, and breaking it down so that it's really, really easy. We have the engineers get involved in sort of writing these. And then within the tasks, the third and final level are these criteria. Those are basically our acceptance criteria. They're verifiable statements written in statement format that can either be true or false. So the form can be submitted. And those go through an approval process in Jira today. And that's our system. These are our statuses. They go left to right, and this will be relevant in a minute when you see the automations from staging to staged to to-do. So staging means it's waiting to be filled out. We've got the project, but we don't have the tasks and criteria. Stage means it's ready, but we haven't decided to prioritize it. To do is basically the hopper from which anybody can pick something off. Implementing means it's currently being worked on. Then it moves into quality needed, code review needed, and then basically out the door. There's some other little statuses, but this is the high level. This will become important as we get to the actual notifications. So in terms of visibility, we wanted to notify us, the high level product team, when projects transition their status within a certain set of relevant ones. So the reason I showed this is we don't, on our team, notify anybody when they move here between staging, staged, or to do. It's really just this back half that we notify. So that's something that it was very important to us to minimize the amount of noise. Number 2, when due dates are added or changed. So once again, I'm trying to translate this for folks who might do a different process. But if you do, let's say, sprints, this might be when something moves from one sprint to another, send a message. The third was when new items are added to the marketing post-launch checklist. This is something that we've established to create a better alignment between our engineering and product teams and our marketing teams, to be able to say, hey, when this goes live, we need to update the knowledge base. We need to update the pricing page. We should have a video for this. Whatever requirements go along with it, when that gets updated, it automatically notifies the marketing team that there's new expectations being set by this project. And the last one here, similar vein, when something is approaching release, so it gets to that sort of code review stage, that's typically a day, 2, 3 away from deployment. So we then notify marketing of that, which creates that solution to that second message at the beginning of the presentation of, I didn't know this was going to go live today. So accountability is the other side we were looking for. We set up a notification when something has been stuck in a stage for more than X days. So we have some sort of internal expectations around that. For us, if something's been in code review for more than 7 days, a little alert should go up. If an implementation due date is within 3 days, we raise an alert, or if the code review due date is within 3 days. We have 2 different dates on due dates on our items. And the last thing is a warning the night before the date passes to give that assignee time to update it before they break the SLA. Because if they come in the next morning and that due date is passed, we would consider that internally, at least, as a broken SLA. It feels like the ball got dropped. And then officially, if that SLA gets broken at 9:30 in the morning, the automation runs. And if the due date has passed, or it's that day, or no, if it's passed, then it starts to flag that. So let's break down what these automations actually do and what the messages look like, because that's hopefully why you joined and what I can help with here. So for starters, part of the system that we developed, every automation starts with a line that includes an icon for easy scanning to discern between the different ones. And they're unique icons per type of message. So when there's just an informational message, like a project status transition, it starts with that. Keeping these channels really easily scannable is very, very important. Number 2, we set up at mentions to the assignee. And so I'll, at the end of this presentation in the recipe section, show you how to add properties to specific users. So in this case, on a user by user basis, I was able to put in on their user account in Jira the Slack ID that they have, which then could be retrieved during the automation in order to actually hit an at mention. So they will get, even if they're not receiving channel messages, they will receive this as a way to break through. Next, there's context and links, bringing it back to Jira. The before and after, this is really important. It was a little tricky to get this, but not just saying what status it is, but where it came from. The context of the actor, who made the change, that's also really important for internal transparency and accountability, because you see that the assignee here is Tyler, and you might assume that Tyler was the one who made the change, but in reality, it was John who made this change. And so that's really helpful context as well. And I'll show you how to get that information out of the automation events. And then lastly, and this is, I think, sort of the piece de resistance, this really made things helpful, the ability to pull in the last comment right here and show it in Slack. So you don't have to open up Jira to go get that. So, hey, this status merged or status changed, and this was the last comment. And you can see who it was by Dimitri, the product manager, the date and time, and what the message was. So this really helped us bring visibility across the team. And I will add a caveat or a special note. If you have a remote team, this is one of the subtle ways you can improve motivation for remote teams by showing everybody what work their peers are doing in real time live. That was one of the things that was a big transition for my team when we went remote in 2020, was all of a sudden you didn't get that same sort of like high excitement feeling of seeing other people doing things, because you were just sitting in your house doing work and it was just kind of isolating. But seeing other people do work and seeing it happen in real time in the Slack channels can be a great way to bring that sense of, oh, we're making progress as a team together. Look what Tyler, John, and Dimitri have been working on. So this was the visibility side. This is the accountability side. So this is another format. Once again, you can see there's a lot of rich formatting going on here to make it really easily scannable. So we start again with an icon for easy scanning. We go to those accountable parties. So in this case, this is at the end of the process. So Patrick is our head of engineering. Tyler is the engineer responsible for this ticket. Both of them have been sort of marked as accountable parties. Of course, we bring in that context again. And you could see the date. This is the ENV due date is approaching soon. It's basically today, you can see here. And you could actually do some math inside your automations to be able to calculate, not just print the date, but how many days between today and that day. So this message was sent on September 25th and saying basically it is due today. What was really helpful for us was also kind of reprinting that constitution in the messages. Now this does get maybe a little bit unnecessary once your team has been up and running for a while and these norms become ingrained. But what was really helpful was the ability to especially adopt a new team member onto the process to explain, hey, Wednesday, September 25th is the date by which you're expecting to move this project to merge to ENVDev or beyond. If you expect to need more time, be sure to proactively update the due date and add a comment in Jira explaining why the original estimate isn't possible. And then also just reminding, even in the final stages, it is still Tyler's responsibility, the assigned engineer, to ensure it hits the indicated date of, et cetera, or this date gets updated before it passes. So this idea of just reminding everybody of what that expected sort of behavior was is really important. Lastly, we wrap up with some clear action items, which was for Pat, the head of engineering, to acknowledge it with a thumbs up to indicate he's on it. And then for Tyler to acknowledge the message with either a check to suggest that he feels like it's good, or an X emoji to say it's not good and there were no comments. And so all it takes then is just 2 clicks for somebody to respond to this in a Slack channel, which is really, really quick and easy. And I'll get to this in a little bit, but the engineers absolutely love this. As opposed to maybe some expectations that we could have set, forcing them to go into Jira and update things, being able to have this little hybrid between Jira and Slack, which is where they already live, and messaging them when they need to take an action, being very direct at what those actions were. You might think that this would be naggy, but I think that our team especially responded really, really well. Your team might vary, and one of the things that's really important is to get feedback on this and not just sort of like enforce this on the team and make sure it's really helpful. But this was a big hit. This is the cross-team alignment case, and this is where I get really excited about where automation can help too, is for our marketing team or our product marketing function. We have a special channel that says basically stream alerts for product marketing. And from here, you get the context and the links and the name of the project, and it basically gives an easy explanation to tell them what's going on. So, this item here, the project is nearing deployment, so release notes should be prepared for when it gets deployed. So we went to the point in our process where we felt like we should start spinning up product marketing, and provided a direct and easy message to get them aware of that. So the verdicts, team loved it. Let me go into the cookbook. So if you have ever set up automation, this might be familiar. I will probably speed through this unless there are questions. So if you have questions, feel free to message in the chat. But for our team, what we did is a never-ending lunchtime, New York time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. At 9 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday message with certain JQuil to run some of them. We also had things run at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and things run at 7 o'clock if those due dates were going to pass. This is the code, and I know this will be in the recording, and I'm happy to share this later. This took a little while to get this right, but this is when you go in to set up the automation, this is the raw code to both use the little smart information that Jira provides. So there's some clever ones here, like the diff to get those days. So you could use a little code now, diff, that date, days, absolute, so that it would be, a positive date. And then you could see also up here, this is where I get that property for that Slack ID for the app mention to come through. And so there's some pretty neat little hacks that we've done. You could even do conditional logic. You can see right here, this is an if the last comment exists, include it. And if it doesn't exist, put a little message that says there are no comments in this project. So that's a little bit of code to put in your recipe book. And then this is where to go. So if you go to, let's say, a user, you go to the Jira product, 3 dots, edit Jira properties. Inside there, this is a little bit of a rough interface, but you just put the key and the value. So I put Slack for everybody and then what their @mention ID is. It takes a little bit of time to set up, but once it's up and running, there it is. And that'll notify them, as we saw before. And these are some final tips. Always get feedback from the team. I think these are the best types of systems when they're a little bit grassrootsy. Integrating this into your meetings. So what we do is, this isn't just something that happens on the side. We start our engineering meetings with a review of the Slack channel. So basically, this is the prep for the meeting, is in the morning, putting the emojis on the messages calling you out. We set up a naming convention for the automations. I'm happy to pull up in a moment our actual Jira instance, but you can see they're all notified ... That way they're easy to find. We set as the owner a special shared account in Jira, so that if we get failures, all of us get an email, so that nothing, once again, fails silently. I also set up a special Slack channel just for testing while building these, because you don't want to spam the real channels. Um, and then lastly, you could do some clever things pairing fields and automation to log important dates. So for example, if you wanted to access the first date something was moved to a status, or the most recent date something was moved to a status, to track those SLAs, you could actually create an automation that says when it moves to a certain status, fill in a certain field that's just a date field you set. And then you could use that to trigger other automations. So that's when you kind of get this sort of exponential effect. And I can't suggest this enough, but to explore. So there are some interesting triggers inside there. Sprint started, issue linked, manual trigger. This one's particularly cool. Just as an idea, if you haven't done a manual trigger before, that shows up in this little actions button on the ticket. So we have one to create branches in GitHub, which is really popular. And these are some of the action ideas. I just wanted to highlight that we do Slack, but Microsoft Teams, or you can just send an email. Now, this wouldn't work really well with that emoji concept of reacting, but it does have some great sort of outputs there. And my hope was to sort of give everybody a bit of a question of, what can automation do to help your team? What problems do you have right now where automation might be able to help? So I will pause there, but thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. I'm happy to answer some questions, show inside our Jira instance some of how we set this up. And yeah, I'll kill the screen share.
That was awesome. And we do have one question from Adria. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Asked, is there any way I can send by email a table or at least a list of issues based on a specific criteria?
Interesting. The way the automation works, it typically iterates over each item. And so as far as I know, you would not be able to send one email with a list using the system that I set up. There might be some other way. I would appeal to the group here if anybody knows a different answer to that.
Yeah, I haven't played around with automations for list view, so I'm personally not too sure, but if anyone else knows, feel free to.
Here's what I'll do. I'll share the screen again. I'll show our instance just to kind of give a peek behind the curtain of how this works for us, at least. So these are all of our automations that are running. And you can see anything notify is one of those, like I said, notify Slack messages. But let's see if I can find something that's useful. How about this one? Notify team of implementing do in less than or equal to 2 via Slack. And then the way it runs is a sort of a for each down here. So run JQuery search and execute actions for each issue in the query. So what that then means is that every item that matches this JQuery is going to then send this Slack message here. And these are the codes, basically, or the sort of message that I shared earlier.
Yeah, both Robert and Thorsten had a similar response, which is the closest thing I can think of is a filter subscription. So, using a filter subscription perhaps could work. And then Philip also have automations in Confluence, so you can automate things there as well. So some crowdsourced solutions. Hopefully that's helpful, Adria. Awesome. Yeah, are there any other questions or feedback in general around how automations can help you, or any specific questions? Susan, do the automations count against Jira product automation limits? That's a good one.
Yes, they definitely do. We actually got clipped at some point. I forgot what plan we were on, but yeah, we actually had to turn off or basically filter the automations to be more efficient with our usage. But yeah, they got us. We got upgraded because of we need more automations.
I muted myself because a siren was going by, but it's gone now. So all is well again here in New York. But cool. Well, I don't see any other questions. Mike, if people want to ask you for those JQuil scripts or any other questions, what's the best way for people to find you or to hit you up?
Yeah, you could directly email me. I think my email was on the last slide there. I'll put it in the chat here. But it's michael@visor.us is a great way to reach me. I know I'm coming up under Becky's name because I used her login, but that's me. And I'm happy to, like I said, share notes on this. I've spent a ton of time reading the Jira documentation to get some of those things working, and I really hope other people can benefit from that because I think this could be transformational for some teams.
Oh, we also have a couple other. I also put in your LinkedIn for people. I know you're pretty active on LinkedIn. Alex asked, I like the simplicity of PTC. Can you think of any challenges adopting this in a bigger organization?
It works well for our size. I could imagine some challenges in a larger org, especially if you've got effectively multiple systems that need to come together. So, for example, we, like I said, one pull request, one project works really well for us. But when you have front end and back end, that's where it starts to get, well, do we do a separate project for back end and a separate project for front end? The nature of our product is a little unique in that we actually get to do most of our work just in the front end. We have sort of like an iPaaS of our own, where the front end does most of the business logic and passes it to the back end. But yeah, I don't know. I think the simplicity is actually particularly nice, and I feel like a lot of folks get caught up in what is an epic and what is a story, and that nomenclature gets a little tricky for especially for newcomers to it. So we wanted to kind of eschew that and do our own thing that was a little bit more, what is just the fundamental unit of work. But I'm very curious to get feedback on it. It's working well for us right now, but we'll see. We'll probably adapt it as we scale.
Awesome. I'm getting hazed slightly for being Camp JQuil. Yeah, it's fewer syllables, Robert. So JQL, I know that's what the cool people say, but okay. And then we have Philip. My favorite automation we do is if a service desk ticket gets moved to a certain status, it will create tickets in another project and copies data and comments over from the ticket. So that's a cool automation.
Yeah.
And then we have one question from Vikram. Does more automation rules downgrade Jira performance?
Not at all, as far as I've seen. Though I assume the way they've built it is they've just got a whole nother little automation service I'm assuming everybody's on Jira Cloud, in which case you're kind of just getting the scale of the cloud, and you won't feel that on your instance per se.
Awesome. And I managed to miss one question that I just caught when scrolling back up from Brandy. Can we get a copy of the slides? I know that Derek sends out the recording. I'll try to coordinate with Derek to also send out a copy of the slides. But if for whatever reason that's not possible, Brandy, I put both Mike and my LinkedIn in there. So feel free to hit me up, or Mike's email. Happy to also just send directly to you. Awesome. Well, I'm curious if anyone has any other questions or anything else that they want to share.
I would love to hear about how other folks are using automation. If anybody in the audience who gave a thumbs up earlier wants to share what you're doing with it, that would be really helpful to hear, because I think part of the reason I think the ACE events are so fun is because of the ability to see what other folks are doing.
Anybody want to volunteer?
Bueller? No. We have a quiet group today, which I totally get. I feel like when I'm in audience mode, sometimes it's a bit jarring to switch over to being vocal. But Short of anyone else, Philip says we also use manual automation to fill out tickets with templates.
Yeah, that's cool.
We use a bunch of different types of automation. So we have routine, like some of them are weekly tasks that have to be done. And so there's an automation that creates a new ticket and assigns it to a specific person and updates a due date at a specific time and puts it in whichever swim lane should be required. And then we have some basic ones like summing up all the story points. We use epics. So creating the summary, whatever, story points all added up.
Rolling them up.
Into the epic.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, how do you do the math on that? I actually have never gotten into doing like a summary across child issues.
I also am Camp Jaquel, so I have a Jaquel piece that I put into it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you can have like basically JQL. I'm sorry, I come from the sequel camp, so it's just JQL. But anyway, that you can have JQL that does math, basically. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think as long as you start with a good internal process, and I think that's where most teams probably fall down, is by not having the expectations clear in the first place. But if you have that, then the automation could effectively become that extra teammate that you wish you had, that was working round the clock to check the clock and see when it was time to do something and create the templates for you. It could be very, very helpful. And I was a little surprised, frankly, that our team was so excited to adopt this, because it feels like it's a nag, right? And I think, and if anybody's familiar with the Salesforce ecosystem, there was a product called Troops that they have a very similar challenge in sales, where you have sales reps need to update Salesforce. And it's not necessarily core to what you're doing as a sales rep is updating Salesforce. You want to be selling and on the phone and sending emails, and it's a bit of a pain in the neck. And so this whole company came around the existence of a Slack connection to your Salesforce that would effectively go hunt people down who had not updated their statuses in time. And a whole company was built around that, which is wild. And Salesforce acquired them not too long ago. But it's kind of a very, similar problem to what we were doing here with due dates passing and not wanting them to pass totally, unannounced.
Totally. We have a couple more people, a lot of chatter. I almost want to do a poll about if people are team JQuil or team
so cool,
because we have some chatter on that. And then also, Robert, we use some basic automation to populate approvers based on their ownership of a specific CI. So that's also a good use case.
Yeah. And then Brandy, I think, shared the summing here. When issue created is greater than look up issue parent equals and issue typings. Okay. Yeah.
And there's also a and create variable and edit issue fields, but for some reason it's not letting me chat anymore, so I can't put the rest of it in.
The sensors don't want you sharing more.
Apparently.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everyone who shared. And like Mike, I really appreciated hearing other people's perspectives and what they're doing. It's always intriguing to kind of see how every organization is its own microcosm of processes and philosophies and ways of doing things. So it's always interesting to look and see what other folks are up to and learn. So, and also, thanks for everyone for attending. Thank you, Mike, for this presentation. And I shared out both of our LinkedIns. Feel free to friend us, message. And Mike also shared his email as well if you have any other questions.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, Derek. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Derek. I forgot to thank you.
No worries. Take care, y'all.
Bye.